I'm Asaki Matsuzaki, a psychiatrist. I received several questions from nursing students about dissociative identity disorder. So, I'd like to take this opportunity to talk a bit about dissociative identity disorder, commonly known as multiple personality disorder. For a more in-depth explanation, I've covered this topic in detail on my main channel in Japanese, so feel free to check it out if you're interested. So then, dissociative identity disorder. One of the questions I received was this. What happens to memory when personalities switch? First of all, when we talk about multiple personalities, it means there are several distinct identities.
Among them,
There's the main personality, the one who was born and raised as that person, known as the host personality. And then there are the alternate personalities. The relationship between them is such that quite often the host has no awareness of the alternate personalities. In fact, that's usually the case. So, from the host perspective, they often have no memory of what happens while an alternate personality is in control. That's why, even though they believe they're just living their normal life, things they don't remember start happening. There are all kinds of stories like that. For example, they receive something from an online store but don't remember ordering it. Or they've been looking forward to eating some ice cream. They open the freezer, go to eat it, and it's already gone. Huh? Did someone eat it without me knowing? Did a family member eat it? Things like that can happen. Another example. They're reading a book, but the story doesn't make much sense to them. Then they realize the bookmarker has moved forward. They've somehow read further without remembering it. There are also cases where a friend says, "Wait, didn't you say this the other day?"
I don't remember. I really don't. Did I say something rude? I'm so sorry.
Things like that happen too. So, from the host's perspective, they often don't have awareness of the alternate personalities.
And from the alternate personalities side, they also often don't have access to the host's memories.
but in terms of the relationship between them, the alternate personalities are usually created to protect the host in times of extreme distress.
So,
It's often imagined that they're watching over the host from somewhere in the background. So, alternate personalities are often somewhat aware of what the host is doing. That said, it's actually rare for there to be only one alternate personality. Well, I suppose having just one is possible. But once they start appearing, there tends to be more and more over time. They're not all active at once. They switch on and off, taking turns as they come and go. So even the alternate personalities themselves don't always have a clear understanding of one another. So then, how should we interact with someone who has dissociative identity disorder? There was a time when people believed that interacting with alternate personalities might make the dissociative identity disorder worse. However, denying the alternate personalities doesn't do any good. If you start ignoring the alternate personalities, it's possible they may stop appearing, but that doesn't mean the condition is cured. It could simply be this person won't acknowledge me, so I won't come out. Or even if one does come out, it might just be a personality pretending to be the host, so no one notices the switch. That kind of thing happens quite often. When it comes to alternate personalities, it's best to interact with them as if they were entirely separate individuals. Now, if there happens to be a highly destructive personality, of course, that requires special caution. But in many cases, the main alternate personalities are actually there to protect the host. They often take on the host's pain, step in and speak up firmly when the host feels powerless, or skillfully handle situations the host can't manage. In that way, most of the core alternate personalities appear in order to protect the host. So, it's important to understand that and respond to them with care and respect.
And if you ask alternate personalities too many detailed questions, like, what's your favorite food? Or what kind of person are you into? Or are you right or left-handed? It's generally said that encouraging that level of specificity isn't very desirable.
The concern is that doing so may further solidify the boundaries between personalities. So, it's better to respond appropriately within the scope of what is shared or naturally comes up. And if possible, what can we do when the host is struggling? Or if the appearance of alternate personalities is causing confusion, how can we manage that? These are the kinds of conversations you might have. In that sense, the appropriate way to interact with alternate personalities is to recognize their value while also seeking their cooperation. Also, since the host and alternate personalities, and even the alternates among themselves, may not share memories, keeping a communication, notebook, or a message log, that's something very important to suggest. There are some people who can hold internal meetings in their mind without needing to keep a notebook. I suppose they've gained enough experience to manage things in that way. However, whether the host can participate in those internal meetings, that's often quite difficult, in my experience. I think so anyway. So that was a general overview of how to interact with someone who has dissociative identity disorder. That's all.